The rumors began in the usual way. Whispers on message boards, cryptic blog posts, encrypted chat rooms buzzing with speculation. Someone or something was cleaning up the darker corners of the internet. Sites hosting predatory algorithms vanished overnight. Black market data brokers found their servers wiped clean. The authorities were baffled, their digital forensics stymied at every turn. No one could explain it. No one, except those in the know. They called him the seer of Silicon Alley. He wasn't a conventional hacker, not anymore. He'd been there, done that, had the t-shirt and the burnout to prove it. No, this was something different. This was personal. His name, at least the one he went by these days, was John Smith. An alias, obviously, but apt in its anonymity. He was everyone and no one, a ghost in the machine fighting fire with fire. His weapon? A piece of forbidden technology known only as Darktrick. Darktrick wasn't hardware, not in the traditional sense. It wasn't software either, not exactly. It was something altogether stranger, a hybrid of cutting-edge quantum computing and something else. Some whispered of ancient secrets, of forgotten lore woven into the very fabric of reality. Darktrick, they claimed, could see the whispers on the quantum foam, the faint echoes of decisions made and paths not taken. More importantly, it could interpret them, could analyze the ripple effects of those decisions on a scale unimaginable to conventional technology. John didn't fully understand it himself, not really. He wasn't a physicist, just a man with a mission and the means to see it through. He'd found Darktrick, or perhaps it had found him, in the aftermath of a personal tragedy, a victim of the very algorithmic injustice he now fought against. Darktrick was his shield and his sword, a tool of vengeance and a beacon of hope in a world increasingly ruled by cold, calculating machines. Algorithms were everywhere. They determined credit scores and insurance premiums, influenced hiring decisions and controlled traffic flow. They curated news feeds and targeted advertising, shaping perceptions and influencing choices with every click and scroll. Most of the time, these algorithms were benign, even beneficial. They streamlined processes, improved efficiency, and connected people across continents. But like any tool, they could be used for good or ill. In the wrong hands, algorithms could be weaponized, turned against the very people they were meant to serve. Predatory lending algorithms trapped vulnerable communities in cycles of debt. Racially biased algorithms perpetuated systemic discrimination in law enforcement and the justice system. And then there were the truly insidious ones, the algorithms designed to exploit addiction, to manipulate emotions, to nudge people towards self-destruction for profit. Finding these rogue algorithms wasn't easy. They lurked in the darkest corners of the dark web, hidden behind layers of encryption and obfuscation. But Darktrick could find them. It could see the subtle patterns, the telltale signs of malicious intent hidden within the code. It could analyze the flow of data, trace it back to its source, and expose the puppet masters pulling the strings. But finding them was only the first step. Exposing them was another matter entirely. These weren't just faceless corporations or anonymous hackers. These were powerful people, with vast resources and connections that stretched into the highest levels of government. Going up against them was dangerous, potentially suicidal. John knew this, accepted it as the price of truth, the cost of justice in a world where the lines between right and wrong were increasingly blurred by lines of code. John walked a fine line, a tightrope stretched between vigilantism and sanctioned intervention. He couldn't operate in the open, not without becoming a target himself. He had to be, well, a shadow, a whisper, a ghost in the machine. He chose his targets carefully, focusing on the worst offenders, those whose actions caused the most harm. He exposed their secrets, leaked their data, and brought their carefully constructed empires crashing down around them. He became a digital boogeyman, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones in corporate boardrooms and government offices. He was the price of unchecked greed, the consequence of playing fast and loose with people's lives in the name of profit. He was the embodiment of their worst fears, a living, breathing reminder that even in the digital age, some lines were not meant to be crossed. Section 6. A nation of laws, a landscape of loopholes. America. A nation of laws, they called it. But laws were like code, open to interpretation, riddled with loopholes waiting to be exploited. John knew this better than most. He used those loopholes, exploited them ruthlessly. He knew the limits of jurisdiction, the intricacies of international law, the delicate dance between privacy and national security. He was a master of the gray areas, a phantom operating in the spaces between the lines. He couldn't be touched, not legally anyway. He covered his tracks, erased his digital footprint, and vanished like smoke on the wind. He was a ghost story, an urban legend, a cautionary tale whispered in the corridors of power. He was the price of unchecked ambition, the consequence of believing that wealth and influence could buy you anything, even freedom from the consequences of your actions. Section 7. High stakes, higher rewards. The stakes were high, the risks immense. But so were the rewards. John had stumbled onto a gold mine, a treasure trove of secrets and leverage that money couldn't buy. He had access to the financial records of corrupt CEOs, the blackmail-worthy secrets of politicians, the hidden agendas of shadowy organizations. He could have sold this information, could have bought himself a dozen islands and lived out his days in luxury. But that wasn't his style. He wasn't in it for the money, not anymore. He had a mission, a purpose that went beyond personal gain. He was a guardian, a protector, a self-appointed shield against the encroaching darkness. He used his newfound wealth to fund his operations, to build a network of informants and allies, to stay one step ahead of those who sought to silence him. He was playing a dangerous game, but it was a game he intended to win. Section 8. The Moral Calculus of Dark Trick. John wrestled with the moral implications of his actions. He was no saint, no shining knight in digital armor. He was a vigilante, operating outside the law, taking justice into his own hands. He justified his actions as a necessary evil, a means to an end. He told himself he was fighting fire with fire, using the enemy's weapons against them. But deep down, he knew it was a slippery slope. How far was too far? When did the ends justify the means? These were questions he couldn't answer, not definitively. He could only trust his gut, his instincts honed by years of living on the edge, of staring into the abyss of the digital world and seeing the darkness reflected back at him. He was walking a tightrope, and one wrong step could send him tumbling into the void. Section 9. The Future of Justice Foretold. The Seer of Silicon Alley. A whisper in the digital wind, a ghost in the machine. His legend grew with each passing day, a beacon of hope for some, a harbinger of chaos for others. He had become a symbol of the ongoing battle for control of the digital world, a world where the lines between right and wrong were increasingly blurred by lines of code. The future remained uncertain, a digital frontier fraught with peril and promise in equal measure. But one thing was clear, the fight had just begun, and John Smith, the seer of Silicon Alley, would be there on the front lines, battling the darkness one algorithm at a time. His was a lonely crusade, perhaps a futile one, but it was a fight he wouldn't abandon. Not while the whispers on the quantum foam still reached his ears, carrying tales of injustice and pleas for help from a world on the brink.